At 38, I realize my family rarely asks, "How are you?" My wife is drowning in grief while I'm battling my own demons. Despite wanting to be a father, infertility and emotional distance haunt me. I may never experience fatherhood, I fear, as loneliness suffocates. Who will listen? Throw away so it is not as easily traceable back to me. I, 38 years old male, do not have anyone in my life who truly cares about me. No one asks me how I am doing. No one knows what is happening in my life. To clarify, I have people who would grieve for me if I were no longer here, but they do not take an interest in my life. They never text me first, and not to sound defeatist or pessimistic, but the truth is I rarely receive responses to the texts I send first. When I do get a reply, it is typically one or two messages, then nothing again for months or years, depending on when I choose to reach out again. I understand that people are busy and may forget, but I would be dishonest if I said it does not hurt a little. I consider myself fortunate that both my parents and my two sisters are alive and healthy. I do not have a poor relationship with any of them, but we could be closer. We all live in different parts of the country, so we do not see each other often, and when we do, there is almost certainly some conflict. Although most of it resolves quickly, some issues remain unresolved to this day. Both of my sisters are married with children, so I understand why they do not have the time they once did. Additionally, my parents are both quite involved in their local community, which keeps them busy. As for my friends, I have one close friend who lives somewhat nearby. We meet about 3 times a year. All my other friends reside multiple hours away. I have 2 close friends from high school and a few from college. They have all gotten married and started families or are expecting. Texting any of these people is almost like sending a message into a black hole. I was always the computer whiz kid growing up, so I always received all the computer-related questions. After I went off to college, my family used to call me for help with something computer-related, and I was delighted to hear from them. However, I would often be the jerk I was back then, and those calls would end with them expressing gratitude for the help but probably feeling foolish, while I acted superior and annoyed that they only called for that reason. Over the years, those types of calls dwindled. On one hand, I miss anyone reaching out to me for any reason. On the other hand, I resented feeling used for my knowledge. My wife has had the most challenging year of her life. I have been doing everything I can to support her through her struggles, yet I fail miserably. She would be the first to tell you this. I have ruined important dates and routinely left her hanging. I do not do this intentionally. I usually have the best intentions in mind. I have struggled with addictions, whether it has been marijuana, which I have since quit completely, video games, or whatever my latest obsession is. I have a history of making poor decisions. I believe these decisions, made not just in my marriage but throughout my life, have resulted in cordial yet shallow relationships, and consequently, as people's lives become busier, I have become the aspect that gets pushed aside to make room for other things. I do not necessarily blame myself, and I certainly do not blame them. I did not realize how destructive some actions could be until I examined them deeply. Nothing I did was exceptionally outrageous, like what you might read on Reddit, just mostly some yelling, stonewalling, or being inconsiderate in general. So yes, my wife and I have been struggling recently. She does not feel supported through her multiple family losses this past year, and I feel exhausted from trying to do everything for her. Before the chaotic last few years, we had a pretty good balance in our household. We both worked full-time and shared the chores fairly. There were a few months when my job demanded many more hours from me, so she picked up my responsibilities. Her father had been ill for years, which was challenging for her, but she fell into a deep depression after he passed away. I knew I would need to be there for her for a long time. Immediately, I added her chores to my responsibilities, except laundry, which she insists on doing. So you name a household chore, I am doing it. Vacuuming, washing dishes, feeding the cat and dog, picking up dog waste, cleaning the litter box, mowing and edging the yard, and we have 2 elderly neighbors, so I mow and edge their yards too, weeding, driving us around, taking us out to dinner frequently. I do not do much cooking and she does not want to, plus she enjoys eating out. Planning our entertainment and restaurants for the evening, bringing her Diet Cokes, picking up the Coke cans she leaves everywhere. Buying her whatever she wants, and I mean this literally, breaking down boxes and taking out recycling and trash weekly, getting the mail, cleaning toilets and bathrooms. I think you get the idea, and this is in addition to working from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. I have a problem when it comes to asking for personal time. It often leads to an argument. I have asked for time when she needed comfort from me. I have taken personal time at inopportune moments that I deeply regret, such as when she had a flat tire on the highway late at night. I was out with a friend, or when her aunt passed away, I was playing video games with a friend online. So I am no saint. I have messed up and disappointed her too many times, resulting in the turmoil we are currently experiencing. She has had one dream her entire life, to buy her parents a house and alleviate their current living situation. So not only did she lose her father and best friend, but she also lost the dream she had longed for. We had one small chance before he passed, and and by we I mean I, squandered it. It was not until recently that we had a second opportunity. This time we could buy her mother the perfect home. It is bittersweet, to be sure. It has been worth it to see her no longer worry about how she will care for her mom. I have also had one dream for my life. I have always wanted to start a family. Ideally, I would like my children to know their grandparents. I never met either of my grandfathers, so I have always wished my children could. It is genuinely unfortunate that our children will not know their maternal grandfather. My father told me several times while I was growing up that I am the last to carry on the family name, as he has no brothers or male cousins. He also emphasized that this means nothing and that he ultimately wants me to pursue what makes me happy in life. Since I want a family regardless of that, it works out. Therefore, we have decided to pause our attempts to start a family until she is more stable, as is our relationship. Before this pause, we tried to conceive for about 2 years prior to what I call the year of hell. Here is where things become difficult for me. After we both underwent a series of fertility tests, it turned out that I received a rare defect on my Y chromosome, which means I produce very little sperm. Conceiving naturally is statistically improbable, and in vitro fertilization is prohibitively expensive, especially if you are not fortunate enough to produce viable embryos to implant on the first few tries. Carrying a pregnancy to term is also not guaranteed, especially for a would-be first-time mother at 37 years old. The cherry on top, my wife and I are also rhesus incompatible, which adds more risk factors to an already risky pregnancy. Even if we could overcome all of these odds, if we were to have a boy, he would inherit the same defect on his chromosome that I have. It is now in the bloodline. I had never considered adoption before the diagnosis, but if we can get ourselves together, I would like to pursue that route. She is open to it but wants to consider fostering, which I am a little less enthusiastic about. For about the last year, my wife and I have each been gradually trying to accept that our dreams in their original form are gone. I will never know what it is like to share the excitement of a positive pregnancy test, to be by her side helping her through pregnancy, to wonder which physical traits or mannerisms the baby will inherit, to be able to raise another human being from their first breath. I will never know what is often described as the most incredible experience life can offer. If that were not enough, I am trying my best not to feel less of a man because of this. It has taken a toll on my confidence, particularly in regard to intimacy. On the kinkiness spectrum, I would rate myself a 3 out of 10, mostly conventional. With that conventionality came some rather basic fantasies: to meet an attractive woman, engage in sexual activity with her, and impregnate her. Your cells are reprogramming her bodily functions to create your offspring. Exciting, right? That type of thought used to arouse me. Now I struggle to maintain my arousal due to intrusive thoughts like, with what sperm, flashing through my mind. As if I really needed to be any more self-conscious while masturbating or having sex. It feels like this pain did not just shatter my dreams, it also destroyed my fantasies. I have never been much of a creative person, but with this situation, I thought that giving my mind something to grapple with would be mutually beneficial. I sometimes share my final results with friends and family, but ultimately this pursuit is for me. I just needed something. As my wife and I grapple with our individual depressions, I am trying to remain steadfast and support her while I wrestle with my own pain. As I stated earlier, despite my best efforts, she has not been receiving the support she needs from me. Consequently, she is unwilling to provide any support in return, as it would make her resentful for feeling like she is giving something she has been desperately seeking herself. I have only confided in my family, my therapist, and now Reddit, I suppose. I have also informed them that we are considering adoption. However, this news is about a year old now, and no one has reached out to ask how I am doing or whether the adoption process is progressing, etc. I would understand if they were uncomfortable not knowing if it is too sensitive a topic that is acceptable if they would like to wait for me to bring it up. But no one even inquires how I am doing, how my hobbies are going, or if I have done anything interesting lately. Nothing. I spoke with one of my sisters about a month ago for about 40 minutes. She told me how busy she has been lately, with one child engaged in this activity and another child involved in that activity. It was nice to catch up. However, about 5 minutes from the end of the call, I realized she had not yet asked me how I had been. As soon as that thought crossed my mind, I felt a pit in my stomach and an invisible hand gripping and squeezing my heart. It was doubt. As the call neared its end, the invasive thoughts were poised to pounce. She said, "Well, I guess that wraps it up. I have to get going. Oh, how have you been? I had not even asked yet." Cue the conflicting emotions. I am happy you remembered. Right after you stated you had to leave for a children's event. I simply told her I was fine and nothing significant had happened since we last spoke. The following day, I had a call with my father who dominated the conversation. When I got a chance to speak, I would begin to share a sentence or two of my own story, which would remind him of something he had to say right now or he would forget. Okay, I understand, but it makes me feel as though what I have to say is less important than what he has to say, if it is important at all. My mother does not really communicate with me. We are not on bad terms, but she is always preoccupied playing cards with friends, watching reality television, browsing social media, or napping. And regarding my second sister, she is essentially estranged. I am the only family member she still communicates with, which says a lot. She recently moved across the country and did not even bother to inform me, which is amusing. So that just leaves my therapist, with whom I meet every 2 weeks for an hour. That is all I have, not just to work on myself, but to engage in a conversation with someone who cares, even if only in a professional capacity. I am just scared. With each passing day, I fear I may never experience fatherhood at all. I believe I would make a good father, too. I just do not comprehend why this has happened to me or why I do not have anyone to help guide me through it. This is likely the longest thing I have ever written. If you have managed to read this far, I commend you. I sincerely appreciate it. Story 2. As a child, my mom often said, "You're making me feel like a bad mother," when I needed help, turning my pain into her guilt. After years of gaslighting, my golden child status vanished when I got sick. Now, with my girlfriend's support, I finally see the truth. I was never broken, just trapped. Content warning: emotional abuse, narcissistic parenting, gaslighting. Summary. My mother's favorite phrase was, "You are making me feel like a bad mother." I was the favored child until I became ill, after which I became the source of their problems. My stepfather is a passive-aggressive narcissist around whom I have tiptoed throughout my life. Breaking Bad devastates me because Jesse's parents reflect mine, being image-obsessed beneath a facade of love. Watching the series with my girlfriend, who supports me through my challenging emotions and genuinely seeks to understand me, has shown me how different life can be. I feel compassion for my parents, particularly my mother, because I recognize that narcissism often stems from trauma. However, this does not justify their pattern of taking and taking while giving nothing of substance in return. I finally recognize the pattern, and now it concludes with me. I do not need to fix myself, I was never broken. It recently dawned on me, a single sentence that has resonated in my head for years. You are making me feel like a bad mother. Not when I lashed out, not when I hurt someone, not when I failed some ethical standard. But when I said, "Please help me." I was 5 years old. I had a tantrum, attempting in my own desperate way to express something I did not know how to articulate. Instead of comfort, my mother became angry. She claimed my need for solace made her feel like a deficient parent. Therefore, she yelled at me and withdrew all contact until I apologized and ceased crying. If I expressed a need for her, I would be punished. If I revealed pain, I would be portrayed as the villain. Despite this, my needy self clung to that abusive biological parent for 32 more years through gaslighting, lies, jealousy, drama, criticism, and the coldness in her gaze that still makes my stomach tighten and my breath hitch every time I encounter it. She gave me life and then outsourced the emotional labor of raising me to a confused, frightened child lacking tools and protection. When I finally expressed that I needed more, she made me feel needy, broken, like the problem was not her neglect but my audacity to ask to be seen. When I told her I was suffering, that my myalgic encephalomyelitis chronic fatigue syndrome was destroying my body, that I could not manage shopping, chores, or even standing upright on some days, her response was not one of care. It was guilt disguised as sadness. It was her shifting the focus back onto herself as she always did. You are making me feel like a bad mother, as though my suffering existed solely to tarnish her self-image. And the irony, I was not always the scapegoat. I was the golden child, her pride and joy, as long as I fulfilled that role. I did not merely enlist in the military. I aimed for the stars. It is astonishing to reflect on how much I harmed myself pursuing the idea that maybe, just maybe, my egotistical parents would eventually love me. I pushed myself beyond my limits, contracted the Epstein-Barr virus, and was thrust back into full service without any recovery time. My body failed, my mind fractured, I was drowning. And instead of supporting me, she tried to keep me in the military because she enjoyed bragging about me, not because it was beneficial for me, not because I was okay. She even financed the lightning process, that questionable mind-over-illness scheme that suggests if you are still unwell, it is your fault for not trying hard enough. Because if I did not improve, then perhaps she would have to confront her failure as a parent, and that was unacceptable, so she made it about my effort rather than her inadequacy. And then there is my stepfather. I have spent my entire life protecting him from the truth that he is an insecure, passive-aggressive individual who conceals himself behind mean jokes, a feigned calmness, and a profound fear of exposure. I allowed him to overshadow me in every conversation. I permitted him to twist every jab into a "can't you take a joke?" I witnessed his gaslighting tactics and his retreating behavior the moment things became serious. At the age of 16, I confronted him and identified him for what he was: an asshole. What was his reaction? He physically barred me from entering my own home. He laid hands on me as if he were a prison guard because I shattered the illusion. That was not discipline. That was a man-child lashing out because I ceased to comply. And that is why Breaking Bad devastates me. My girlfriend, the first person who truly recognizes me for who I am without demanding a performance, has been watching the series alongside me. While we lie there simply viewing a show, I find myself repeatedly struck by scenes that reflect my life in ways I never anticipated. She loves to pause the episodes with me to talk, analyze, and reflect. She does not roll her eyes or become irritated, as my family used to when I posed questions or held differing views. God forbid we ever paused a film growing up or disagreed. Such behavior was treated as a personal affront. But now I am able to engage in healthy, inquisitive conversations with someone who seeks to comprehend me. It was not an easy transition. She supported me through every instance my abandonment wound flared when we disagreed. She encouraged me to remain instead of fleeing. She helped me articulate my thoughts instead of shutting down. She assisted me in unlearning the belief that difference is dangerous. So when we encounter that scene where Jesse's parents smile while disowning him, it hits me like a freight train. We love you, but we cannot allow you to stay here. That was not love, that was image management disguised as rehearsed concern. Just like when I was caught smoking marijuana, they did not inquire about what was wrong. They sent me to therapy to be corrected, not supported, so they could continue pretending they were not part of the problem. And here is the part that still plagues me. I feel sympathy for them, my mother, my stepfather. Deep down, I understand what they are, individuals emotionally frozen in childhood, surviving through defense mechanisms, trapped in a quiet panic, too afraid to confront their own reflections or be unmasked. Wearing masks daily, performing adulthood, mimicking empathy. But beneath it all, just hurling insults like angry 5-year-olds who never learned how to love, feel, or take responsibility, particularly towards others. In my mother's case, I do not believe she consciously chose to become this way. I think she was shaped by trauma, neglect, or whatever emotional violence molded her long before I came into existence. I genuinely believe narcissism can develop from unresolved childhood pain. However, that does not absolve her or anyone. We all have a choice. She chose to shield her narrative instead of her son. It does not grant her or anyone the right to take endlessly and provide only crumbs to their children, partners, coworkers, or the surrounding world. It does not excuse their actions of draining other people's life force, their energy, their self-worth, their voice merely to nurture a bottomless ego they are too frightened to confront. Understanding is not synonymous with excusing, and I am done bleeding for those who lack the capacity to love me unconditionally. It becomes easier when you forgive yourself after a lifetime of that critical voice you once believed would safeguard you in childhood by labeling you as stupid, inadequate, or a burden, even telling you that you are broken. The truth is, I will never be able to fix myself because I was never broken in the first place. Logically, I understood that long before I could emotionally accept it, but it began to resonate with me finally, when I realized it was reflected back in the love I share with my girlfriend. She is the first person I recall who allowed me to cry in her embrace without pulling away. No discomfort, no retreat, no attempts to fix me, just holding. The way she gazes at me without flinching. The way she creates space for the most difficult parts of me as though they are still deserving of warmth, because we all need to cry sometimes, so why cry alone? The way we pause our viewing to converse, not because we always agree, but because we respect each other's perspectives. That is when I recognized, I have been complete all along. I just needed someone to hold my hand while I embarked on the scariest journey of all, to become the version of me they taught me to fear, the authentic one. Story 3. After years of enduring my husband's emotional abuse and infidelity, he abandoned me while pregnant, saying I made him suicidal. Now he parades around with the coworker he cheated on me with just weeks after leaving. I'm ready to fight for my daughters and my freedom. What's next? It has barely been a month since my soon-to-be ex-husband took his belongings and left. I have been a stay-at-home mother for the past few years, so I relied on his income. We live in California where rent is expensive, and since he is the only one who works, we rented a house with my parents and brothers to share the rent and bills. Our rent is $870 and we pay the trash bill, half of the electricity bill, and half of the weekly groceries. On March 2nd, he chose to leave. He had received our tax refund, paid off any debts we had, and with the remaining money, he rented a room somewhere, told me he was tired of me, gathered his belongings, and left. He blamed me for everything, claiming I did not love or respect him. He stated that he felt suicidal being with me and could no longer endure it. He insisted it was temporary until we resolved our issues, but it was all lies. As I sat down to reflect, I realized how manipulative he could be. He blamed me for everything but never once acknowledged why I acted that way toward him. In December 2020, when my oldest daughter was 3 weeks old, I thought I had the perfect life. I was married to the love of my life, had just given birth to our beautiful baby girl, and was experiencing a bit of postpartum depression due to the significant change in my life. Then I discovered messages on his phone, an Instagram account with no pictures, a random name, and direct messages full of girls. Some messages were dated just an hour prior. I tried to suppress everything I had seen and read, but I couldn't. I confronted him about it and told him to leave and take his things. He pleaded and begged me not to separate him from his family, promising he would change. Yet I found more messages less than 24 hours later. Some messages were with my cousins, friends, acquaintances we both knew, and even his own cousin. Experiencing that drastically altered my life, I fell into a deep depression, lacked the energy to do anything, and let everything get messy. Then I would have brief bursts of energy and clean everything I hadn't tended to during the week before falling back into a depressed state. He would buy me gifts to compensate for his actions, things he would later throw in my face, making me feel ungrateful. When our daughter was 10 months old, I found messages with an old coworker of mine who was a friend and had even told me how happy she was for me, calling herself the godmother of our daughter. In those messages, he expressed his desire to physically harm me, shared how much he hated being with me, and they exchanged explicit photographs. I was going to move back to my parents' house, but he again begged me not to leave. Since we were about to move into our new place, he assured me things would change and that he truly wanted his family. In November 2021, we moved into our new home. I started a job in February 2022, which helped improve my depression. I believed things were going well between us, and since I always wanted 2 children, we talked about it. I stopped taking birth control so we could begin trying for baby number 2. I hoped this pregnancy would be different, that I would not experience as much stress as I had with my firstborn. I learned I was pregnant in September 2022 and we were both so happy. Then in March 2023, when I was 6 months pregnant, I discovered another Instagram profile with messages of him talking to other women. I was furious. I couldn't believe he had betrayed me again while I was pregnant. I packed my bags and prepared to leave, but he stopped me. Maybe I was foolish for not leaving. I felt weak-minded, yet he knew how much I wanted our family to stay together and how desperately I wanted things to work out for us, so I stayed again. Each time I found messages, my love for him diminished, my respect waned, and my resentment grew. I desperately wanted things to work out because I wanted my daughters to have their family together. Whenever I attempted to discuss these issues with him, he would dismiss my concerns, saying they were merely messages and that it wasn't as if he was actually sleeping with them. However, I could not believe him, especially after all the lies he had told. In April 2023, we were evicted from the house we rented because he acquired a Rottweiler that the landlord did not want, which led to our eviction. I was 8 months pregnant, so my parents offered for us to move back in with them. We relocated to the 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house they rented. Our second daughter was born in May 2023. During this time, my ex worked at a countertop company installing countertops, earning $16 an hour. I urged him to seek employment with my father's company and spoke to my dad, who kindly agreed to help him find a job. My father spoke with his boss, who made an exception since he was my brother-in-law, and hired him in June 2023, starting him at $23 an hour despite his lack of experience. In July 2023, we found a larger house to rent and moved in during August 2023. A week later, I discovered yet another Instagram profile where he was again communicating with women. Some of those messages involved him flirting and sending inappropriate messages to his cousin and half-sisters. I could not believe what I was reading. He again assured me that things would change, but I had already become numb to the pain. I was dealing with everything on my own because I felt too embarrassed to confide in anyone. He knew precisely what to say to make me stay. I felt too weak-minded to leave and I loathed myself for it. I permitted him to hurt me repeatedly. I truly believed things would be different this time and that he would genuinely change, but nothing improved. I allowed him to continue to hurt me and I let him shift the blame onto me. Whenever I confronted him about the messages, he would retort that it was because I was a bad wife, that I was messy, and that I did not respect him. But where is my respect? Where is the respect for our daughters? I was severely depressed and lacked the energy to do anything. I was constantly anxious and on edge. He had anger issues, and any little mistake would provoke him into a yelling frenzy. I could not cry because he would scold me for it. He made me feel like I had no right to be upset about his messaging other girls because they were just messages, not real cheating, and that I needed to get over it, but I couldn't, and I still cannot. He does not comprehend the trauma he caused me. In September 2024, I found another account he used. I couldn't access it, but I knew he would use it. That is when I decided I would stay so he could pay for my schooling and finalizing my AOS, but he left me before I could accomplish either of those. He blames me for everything that went wrong in our marriage, and I am okay with being the villain in this story. I do not owe anyone any explanations except for his mother, to whom I disclosed everything. Yesterday, March 31st, he asked if he could take the girls and I agreed. I got them ready, he picked them up and they left. When he came to drop them off, my oldest began telling me about a birthday party they attended. As soon as he heard that, he said he had to go, rushed to his car, and drove away. I asked my daughter again what she had said, and she informed me they went to an old coworker's birthday party. My daughter mumbled a bit, but I distinctly heard her mention the name of the coworker with whom I had been cheated on. I inquired again and she repeated it, so I asked if it was a boy or a girl and she replied girl. I was filled with rage. I called him, but he would not answer. When he finally did, I asked where he had taken the girls, and he responded that I did not need to know, saying he was driving by, then hung up. He took my daughters to spend time with a woman he had cheated on me with another woman, despite us not even being separated for a full month. When he left, he said it was temporary and that we needed space from each other. Now I understand why he needed that space. I am so furious, I cannot even believe I am experiencing this. I tried so hard to hold on so that my daughters could have their father in their lives, but now I do not want him near my daughters or me at all. What makes it worse is that all the evidence I had of his infidelity messages indicating his cheating with his cousin and half-sisters are gone. All the proof I had of his unfaithfulness has disappeared from my phone, iCloud, and Google Photos. I am incredibly upset. I did not deserve any of this. While I was severely depressed and lacked the energy to clean, he took pictures of how messy the house was when my mental health was at its weakest and kept them. I am now in therapy, hoping to heal from all the damage he caused. He also lost his job because he spoke negatively about my father and brother's workplace, attempting to get them fired because he believed he deserved a raise. It backfired, resulting in his layoff. We have a car we purchased in 2021, and he told me he would not return it until I found a job and could afford the payments. He also stated he would provide me with $100 a week and only half of the rent. I asked him to please give me $200 until I secured employment, but it has been 2 weeks and he has not even given me a single dollar. This situation is extremely stressful. Following the stunt he pulled yesterday, I am beginning to seek legal counsel to assist me with filing for divorce and child support. I have gotten a job though, and I am waiting for them to call me in for orientation. I eagerly anticipate finally freeing myself from him. Story 4. At 21, I reflect on my life of theft and deception. I stole $3,000 from my mom just to fit in, yet nothing changed. After a brief high during my best year, the fall was brutal. Is my relentless greed a curse or my own making? I'm terrified of spiraling again. This is more of a rant, as I have so many thoughts in my head. I apologize if this seems unorganized or scattered. I'm not sure how to approach this without providing my entire life story. I am aware that I may miss some context or jump around or forget some important details, but I am trying to understand why I do what I do and why my life is such a chaotic mess. I am 21 years old and have completely messed up anything good that has ever happened to me due to my greed, jealousy, pride, and many other factors. I also struggle with stealing, which I would like to discuss as well. During my adolescence, I often found ways to escape the house, and when I did, I was around people who were not the best influence, gang members, drug dealers, etc. This lasted from ages 9 to 12 when I fell into the habit of stealing and became quite a troublesome child, growing up without the things that other kids had made my tendency to steal worse. I did get caught once at age 12. That was my first experience sitting in the back of a police car. However, I did not learn my lesson. By age 14, I moved to a better neighborhood with a more positive environment, but I still carried my old habits with me. I performed poorly in grammar school but managed to pass. Perhaps they just wanted me gone, as I was a significant troublemaker. Throughout those years, I frequently found myself in confrontations or trouble. During grades 1-8, I was suspended at least once every year. It got to the point where, even when I did things right, I would still get blamed. Nothing went my way, and my classmates made fun of me for not having what they possessed or the skills they demonstrated, which affected me deeply. I constantly tried to fit in and make people like me. I was so desperate that I would even steal from my family just to purchase things to fit in or be better than they were. There was one instance in grammar school when I stole $3,000 from my mother and squandered it on God knows what in an attempt to appear cool and fit in with my classmates. Unfortunately, that strategy did not work, perhaps for just a couple of days. I literally wasted it on Lego sets, toys, and games, giving them away just to try and gain acceptance. Yet again, I did not learn my lesson. When I got caught, I saw how devastated and broken my mother was. At that moment, I did not understand the severity of my actions. All I cared about was how to fit in or be as cool as my peers, all while watching my mother break down. That was utterly horrible of me, and I feel disgusted by it now. My mother shows me so much unconditional love, yet I can be such a terrible person to her at times. Anyway, despite all of this, I did not change and only worsened. I fell into substance abuse and began stealing more than just money. My mother almost sent me to military school, which, looking back, maybe she should have. By the time I reached 8th grade, I was still engaging in the same destructive behaviors but had escalated to doing even more foolish things, antagonizing others, using more substances, and so on. Perhaps it was my way of seeking attention from others, I am not sure. When I finally began making real friends, I developed a bad habit of borrowing money from people to buy things I wanted, knowing I would not be able to pay them back promptly, or in some cases not at all. I also stole from my family again at one point to support my hobbies of trying to fit in with other people. My hobbies involved bikes, and everyone had cool $1,000 bikes while I struggled with a cheap $50 steel bike at the beginning. Eventually, everything caught up to me. I lost those few real friends, a friend I had not even had yet, and connections with others. I lost the trust of my family and much more. And yet, I still failed to learn my lesson. When I started my freshman year, I figured out how to earn good money, and due to my actions, I finally had many people who liked me. That was what I had always wanted. However, I continued to have the urge to steal and deceive not just money but also items like a pack of candy, a box of Legos, or clothing, even when I could afford them at the time. I was earning a decent amount each week and managed to get myself a nice car and many other things. Still, I felt the need to steal or take advantage of immoral situations. I was able to suppress these tendencies, but of course, after a year and a half of what felt like the greatest time of my life, the COVID-19 pandemic occurred. I lost my means of making good money, and since I was no longer able to earn income, I fell into difficult times and began deceiving people to maintain the status I had achieved during that year and a half. Over time, people naturally caught on and my reputation was once again ruined. I have betrayed people I never thought I would encounter again, thinking it would never come back to haunt me, but I have learned that when people say the world is small, they are absolutely right. Everyone somehow knows someone or something, and everything is interconnected. I have yet to understand why I feel the need to engage in such behavior, but I have gotten significantly better at avoiding it. It has been almost 2 years since I last deceived or stole from someone that may be a lie. I have managed to control myself as I am tired of the consequences coming back to haunt me. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I have many negative habits, characteristics, and traits such as being extremely selfish. I tell myself I care about others and their feelings, but in the back of my mind, I hear something telling me to disregard them and prioritize myself. However, what confuses me is that I care about how others perceive me and my status, yet I feel indifferent about them and their well-being. I often find myself trying to be the center of attention, fabricating lies or fake stories to appear cooler or better than I truly am. I cannot figure out why I engage in this behavior. Additionally, I struggle with conversations. I try to participate, but words often go in one ear and out the other. What runs through my mind is that I do not care about what others are saying. I want to discuss what I want to discuss, even though I truly want to listen. I find it difficult to concentrate on what they are saying. Another issue I face is my inability to prioritize. For instance, I am aware that I have bills and debts to pay, yet instead of prioritizing those responsibilities, I prefer to spend money on trivial, materialistic items to show off and for other superficial reasons. Sometimes I wonder if I am trying to be someone I am not. I have been grappling with the idea of seeing a psychiatrist, as those around me suggest that something is wrong with me, perhaps attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, borderline personality disorder, or something else altogether. One thing I want to mention is that I have been addicted to cannabis for the past 5 to 6 years, which is undoubtedly affecting me as well. I experience severe memory loss, often forgetting simple things, and my overall lifestyle is unhealthy. I struggle to take care of my belongings, constantly misplacing things, and I am disorganized and scattered in general. I want to discover what trauma has influenced my behavior. Am I truly a terrible human being? Am I receiving the karma I deserve for my actions? I fear that I will revert to my bad tendencies and spiral downward for the rest of my life. If you need any additional context, please feel free to ask, as there is so much more to this story.